Hey, it's James, Parents' Rights and Resources, hashtag how I got custody. I'm going to talk to you about what specifically I would argue in a court hearing to try and get 50-50 or custody. This is an extension to my number one video, my most popular video, the number one argument for 50-50. So this is an extension to this. This is a shorter version. I talked even more specifically about what I would say and how I would say it. Before I get into that, reminder, if you haven't got a consult with me, you don't know everything you need to know. You probably should get a one-on-one consult with me. And then you'll find out, then the people who really want to find out, man, I don't know half of the stuff I should even be knowing. And they usually have to get a follow-up because they learn more and they go find out more stuff and they have more questions. If somebody doesn't get 5 consults with me in a month, then they're not learning everything they need to know. If you haven't had a single consult with me, you are probably totally lost. And you shouldn't be complaining that you're losing or this and that, because you're not arguing the right way and you're not working the system the right way and you're not playing the games outside of the court the right way. Now, there's some people watch all my free videos and figure all the stuff on their own, and they spend all the time doing research. But there's shortcuts I can give you by talking to you about your case one-on-one, and we look at specifically what's going on with you, and we go right to the point. Or you can watch my videos for hours and hours and try and figure it out. It's just working with me saves you time. When I started off my case, I knew 1% of the information I'm sharing with you guys. And I was a warehouse worker who flunked out of college, and I destroyed attorney after attorney and GAL after GAL in Superior Court and in the Court of Appeals. And if you go to the link below this video, there's my flow page, which has my winning court orders that proves it. Attorneys with 17 years experience, 50 years experience, guardian alliance with 10, 15 years experience, destroyed all of them. And some of my winning court orders prove that. And then on my flow page, all you dads especially should be checking out the section that says must see for dads. You're missing out on information you should be using as exhibits in your court papers. If you're not doing that, you're not doing everything that you can to fight for your kids, which means you don't care. You got to care enough about your kids to use everything from somebody like me who won and get information from other people who've won. But I don't know if there's really anybody out there. Everybody tells me they don't see anybody else except Judge Anthony. And he's $650 an hour. And he was a sellout judge that was part of the system that he now says is corrupt, but he's not doing anything about it. Anyway, here's the argument I would make about the best interest of the child and why I should be more than every other weekend dad. If I go to court, whether the mom's withheld the child, playing games, only wants me to be every other weekend, or doesn't want 50-50 and all that stuff, it's because of child support, vindictiveness, control. Here we go. Your Honor, the law says that you have to do what's in the best interest of the child. The factors in the law include things like, if you're in Florida, this is 63.13. If you're in California, you start off with 3020B. If you're in Washington, you start off with RCW 269.002. A lot of them say the same thing in different ways. You tell the judge, or I would tell the judge, Your Honor, one of the main factors that this mother totally flunks in the law is which parent is more likely to facilitate a relationship and honor the child's relationship with the other parent. She's undermining, slandering me, withholding the child, and trying to break the bond that was established from birth. I was in the home when we were married or when we were together, or even if you weren't together. I was changing diapers, cleaning throw up, giving the kid baths. But the most important thing, I was spending time with the child. We talk all day long about the kids don't care about your presents, as in gifts at Christmas. They care about your presence. You being there. The mother's so adamant about child support and material things, and the guardian litem is talking about, the father this and the father that. All a child cares about is the relationship, and all the studies and all the data shows that. Now let's get right to that. For the law says the best interest of the child. How is it not in the best interest of the child to have 2 parents involved? All the statistics and data says when the father's not in the home full time, the child's more likely to be on drugs. 10 times more likely to be on drugs. 20 times more likely to drop out of school. 30 times more likely to end up in jail or gangbang or criminal activity, be suicidal, depressed, in poverty. I'm not in the home full time. That's impossible right now unless you give me custody. That would be the best for the child because that's what the statistics show. There's no statistics out there on how great single motherhood homes are. In fact, the statistics show kids are struggling because the father's not in the home. So if you care about the child and the welfare of the child and your duty of care to the child, you have an allegiance to the child, not to the mother, not to me. This isn't about me and the mother as much as what's best for the child. Her home is toxic. My home is peaceful. Her home is an undermining, alienating home that hates the other side. I honor and say that the child should have both parents involved for her own for his or her own health and welfare. If you look at the statistics, and all of you, by the way, that section must see for dads on my flow page has statistics about absent fathers. Then it has a psychological book on psychological paper that's about 30 pages long that 100 other psychologists signed up on, talking about how better shared parenting is than every other weekend. And then there's data about kids in the infant and toddler stage. Their brains don't develop properly if they don't have bonds with both parents. And everything else doesn't, emotions, psychology, all that stuff, doesn't develop properly without bonds with both parents. This woman wants the child to be in an at-risk category. What rational, normal human being, and there's always this person called reasonable person in the courtroom, no reasonable person would want to intentionally put their child in an at-risk category. If somebody lives in an impoverished gangbanging neighborhood and they can afford to move out, they will move out to keep their child safe, or high crime or drugs or whatever. There's mafia on your block or whatever, or there's all kinds of dangers. No reasonable parent would keep a child in an at-risk category or situation, or any reasonable parent would move the child out of such a situation. This woman intentionally wants the child to be in an at-risk category. She intentionally wants the child to be harmed and to suffer. Because all the science out there says that if you place the child in the mother's home full time and only let me be a visitor, you are harming the child. So you need to if you're going to do that, you need to make a finding that there is something more harmful by being with me than there is by being with her and away from me. Because all the statistics and all the data shows that if you place a child with me and do her parenting plan, you are harming and hurting the child. And your obligation is the best interest of the child. Not like, okay, what'll make the child survive? What's good enough to get by? Your obligation and allegiance is to the child's very best interest. You know, this family is broken. Children suffer trauma when a family is broken. Everybody knows children suffer when there's a divorce. They blame themselves. How come my parents can't stay together? It's my fault. We all know children suffer. Psychologists say when you're together and you're married and you're living together, spend quality time with your kids. If you're supposed to do that when you're living together, how much more should you do that when the family's broken? If you have a wound and you have a cut on, let's say, your thigh or your calf, and there's a big gash or a wound, you don't sew half of the skin back on. You sew both sides together and sew it up. Now, it's not going to look like it originally did. You'll have a scar and stitches and things like that, but it will be as healthy as it could be. If you just sew this up and this flap is open, then this side's going to fester and get bacteria and all this other stuff. So why would you not sew up the family as much as possible? This is basic common sense. And everybody in the world, everybody in the Western world is saying, fathers, get more involved. Fathers, step up to the plate. Fathers, be involved with your kids. Every pastor, every psychologist, there's single mothers crying out for the dads to step up to the plate and be involved. Every politician, fathers, be involved. Here I am, ready and willing to be involved. And the only person in the world that's saying, we don't want this child to have a father, is the mother. She wants me to be she wants me to be a visitor in the child's life, and the grandparents, the cousins, the daycare, the school, the baseball coach, the teachers, they all get to see my kid more than I do. Do you think that kid cares about these temporary relationships, or he cares more about the permanent, lifelong relationship? The mother and the guardian are all caught up on, the father doesn't have a perfectly beautiful home. Who cares about the four walls when the kid just wants a relationship? Where's the scientific data that says if you grow up in a rich home, then it's more important than a loving middle-class home? There is none. So we got to believe the science in here, Your Honor. And so when I'm doing this argument, I'm attacking the mother and how stupid she is, and she's not believing the science and all this other stuff. So I'm basically saying if you go with her parenting plan, you're not believing the science. But I'm not directly telling that to the judge. You know, the law says your allegiance is to the welfare of the child, and like in Washington, RCW 2690002, the state recognizes the fundamental importance of the parent-child relationship to the child. So if you're taking one part of the parent-child relationship away from the child, you are harming the child. You would never say, let the child drink water but not eat food. Let the child have clothing but not shelter. You would never say that, Your Honor. If the mother takes one of those things away, we would call her a child abuser. But she wants to take the next most important thing in the world to the child, outside of food, water, and air, the father. And defies all the science and all common sense and every civic advocate, every politician, every pastor, every religious leader, every human being pretty much says, dads be involved. And here I am wanting to be involved. She says no. And so why in the world would you make me every other weekend visitor in the child's life as if I'm in prison? There's people in prison that, you know, I know some cases where the dad has a sex offense and he gets to see the kids every other weekend. Or the dad has a history of violence. And I haven't been criminally convicted of anything that. So if you give her custody of the child, you need to make a finding that being with me is way more harmful than the actual official undisputed pain the child suffers when I'm not there. Now, I could be an alcoholic or drug addict and you're protecting the child from me, but it still harms the child not being in my home because that's an automatic scientific data-based statistic. You can't possibly, no reasonable human being or no normal human being would say, I don't want the child to have a father. I was a great candidate to create a child or children with her. Then all of a sudden she doesn't want the children to have a father. That's anti-nature, Your Honor. She's defying the science, the data, everything a psychologist, a pastor, a religious leader, everybody would say. Single mothers out there crying out for fathers, step up to the plate. Here I am. And she's defying nature's order also. This is insane. This is why she needs to be checked out for a mental health problem. She needs a mental health evaluation and to complete any recommended treatment they find something. And I've looked at profiles of people with narcissism, sociopath, bipolar disorder, or whatever you may be studying. And her profile and her actions fit that. Now, I'm not a psychologist that could diagnose her, but that's why you order psychological evaluations. Because nobody in their right mind would say, hey, here's an able-bodied father and he wants to be involved. My child needs a father. My daughter needs a father to learn how gentlemen should treat her. She needs the affirmation and the love and the strength and security and safety from a dad. So does my son. My son needs to learn, he needs to receive male affirmation and to build confidence and be taught how to be a man. It's not something that I could do. I want the child to have a father. But she doesn't say that, Your Honor. So, you need to follow the science and the data. And it doesn't matter. And you know what the mother's trying to say? The mother's trying to say, and she told me before, well, the courts only care about mothers, or they're pro-mothers, and they don't think fathers should be involved. I hope that's not the case. I hope we're getting out of that kind of bias like we got out of Jim Crow South courts where they executed 12-year-old black boys for whistling at a white woman. I hope that we're not doing stuff just because it's the way we've always done it, because you went to law school, got out of law school, and your law firm said, oh, this is just the way that we do it because this is the way that it is around here, around these parts here. Now, if you got an attorney and your attorney won't say this basic legal 101 fundamental argument, and I'm talking to my audience here now, if your attorney won't say that, your attorney's a punk sissy coward. Why would you have an attorney on board and pay them $400 an hour to say, oh, let's not look aggressive. Let's not attack the mother. She's in there crucifying you. And you're not going to defend against and point out and prove that she's lying? If she's lying in court, why would you not point that out and prove she's lying so they can say we don't believe you? Your punk-ass, stupid, airheaded, dumbed-down, moronic attorney who has a law degree that's not what the paper's written on is saying, don't attack the mother for her lying. Let's not attack the mother for beating up the kids or for being suicidal maniac. Even though the law says that if she has mental illness or abuses the children, that's a factor the court has to consider. Your attorney is saying, don't even bring that stuff up. That'll look too aggressive. And the law says the court has to consider it. And your attorney is saying, don't bring up stuff that the court has to consider. That's like a coach telling somebody, don't run as hard as you can and hit the running back as hard as you can and send a message to him and wrap him up and slam him to the ground. Just gingerly walk across there and say, hey, will you please lay down? So, now that's the bare minimum. I could talk for days about this. So, remember that you're paying an attorney, you're the boss. If they don't want to do it, they're selling you out. And also remember not to be a punk-ass bitch like a lot of you guys are being because you're too scared to stand up for your kid and you're scared to piss off the judge. Go fight for your rights and act like the man that you are.